I am so excited that we are entering year 2 of the support from the fireworks community team. I am so excited to have them hosting us today. They're a creative co-working space focused on supporting the local community and uplifting creative entrepreneurs. Get a free day pass. When you book with them, you have to use code DRIVE, or if you go to see them in person to visit their beautiful space and meet their awesome staff, tell them Logan from Your Morning Drive sent you, and you'll get a free day pass to try the space yourself. Fireworks Co-working in Marietta, Georgia.
Your Morning Drive is also present to us by Good Days Canned Cocktails. Good Days are a classic cocktail brand created in a convenient, ready-to-drink canned format for any occasion, whether it's a pool day, a boat day, a beach day, a graduation, a wedding, a bar mitzvah, anything in between. Good Days are there for you. Good Days are ahead when they are in your cooler, your fridge, your anything in between. Good Days has your back. If you want to be one of the first to try their drink, you can do so by visiting drinkgooddays.com/pages/find-us to find a store near you selling their drink. Of course, you must be 21 years of age to consume and purchase.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Your Morning Drive. I'm your host, Logan, host with the most, coming to you from the Fireworks Studio in Marietta, Georgia. We are so happy that you are here and that you've tuned in today. Before we dive in, I have a couple of quick requests. Number one, hit that follow or subscribe button on whatever listening platform you're on. That way you'll never miss an episode, and new ones will be coming to you every single time one releases. Second, share this episode with just one friend, coworker, family member, someone in your life that needs a little inspiration, a little new conversation, a little new podcast to start their day. You can find us on Apple and Spotify, as I said, or if you enjoy a more visual experience, you're welcome to watch in full on YouTube as well. Again, make sure on those platforms, just hit that follow, like, or subscribe button, whatever floats your boat. And don't forget to leave a review, mainly on Apple Podcasts. Spotify and YouTube don't let you do that, but on Apple Podcasts, leave the review. It's a simple way of getting us more exposure and reaching even more people. For even more content, updates, and behind-the-scenes fun, follow along on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And on those platforms, you'll find episode announcements, fun clips, and plenty to keep you inspired and entertained throughout the week. My guest today is a Georgia native with a master's degree in human services counseling, is an Enneagram business consultant, corporate trainer, and coach with over a decade of experience in the behavioral health field. After serving as executive director of a trauma-informed counseling center and facing burnout, she embarked on a self-healing journey that led her to Enneagram certification, transforming her personal and professional life. She now helps individuals, businesses, and corporations foster supportive, healthy work environments by addressing toxic cultures, improving communication, and enhancing collaboration. Combining her behavioral health expertise with authenticity and humor, she equips leaders to create workplaces where employees feel valued and respected, driving both efficiency and profitability. Please welcome my new friend, Kaleigh Newby.
Hi.
Hi.
Good to be here.
Glad we were able to figure out a time that worked. It was awesome.
Me too.
Yeah. So, I mean, to put it, okay, so I'm just going to dive right in.
Dive in.
Because I was talking to my wife about this, and she was slightly intoxicated because I was a designated driver last night. And I was like, she's like, so who are you interviewing tomorrow? I was like, well, I've got this one woman. She does Enneagram stuff. And I was like, I don't even know what that is. And she's like, okay. So she kind of explained it. But then she told me to tell you that she's an Enneagram 1, maybe. And she was like, and you need to figure out what you are and how compatible or not we are together. So I don't know what Enneagram 1 means, but so I guess for the people listening and for me, Define Enneagram.
Sure. So I think you can probably find a lot of different definitions based on who you talk to and based on the work that they do with it, if they work with it, or the types of clients they see if they utilize it in practice. The Enneagram is a personality tool. Think Myers-Briggs, think DISC, Strength Finders, things like that. However, a lot of those personality assessments focus on our external behavior, what we're doing. The Enneagram talks about why we're doing it. So even if we all enjoy the same thing, we could all have different motivations to do that thing.
Okay.
So I think travel might come up later. And if we think about travel, if you know anything about the Enneagram, you might think, oh, Enneagram 7s love to travel, because Enneagram 7s are often seen as spontaneous and adventurous, moving from one thing to the next. But I'm an Enneagram type 2. I love to travel. The reason that I love to travel is very different than an Enneagram type 7. So we can all do the same thing, but it's why we're doing it that the Enneagram informs us. So it's a very deep personality tool, and it can inform how we collaborate with other people, which is why it can also be used in business to tap into those motivations to get the behaviors we want versus just saying this behavior needs to change, but not knowing how to change the behavior.
Wow. Do you ever talk to somebody and after hearing them talk for a couple seconds, you're like, this person is far smarter than I am? I'm like, that is where I'm sitting right now, because that sounds really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, when all of us were kids, we all took those personality tests on Facebook and like early social media, and even in school, even with the little flip chart things that we used to do. I don't even know what those are called, but I just unlocked a memory I forgot that I had, right? And it was always just, you know, pick the color, pick this, pick that. And then it always ended up is that you were X, Y, and Z. And that is kind of an early way of kind of doing this, right?
Yeah. And I mean, we're all always trying to figure out more about ourselves and more about the people around us. And I think as we grow older, we forget about the people around us part, especially when it comes to the context of work or relationships that aren't as deep or that we haven't held as long. And so this kind of opens the door to new avenues of understanding yourself so that you can apply it in those ways. One thing that a lot of people get wrong with the Enneagram is they're like, oh, it just puts you in a box. So you mentioned wife says she's an Enneagram 1. I say I'm an Enneagram 2, but that doesn't mean that my behavior then gets excused because, oh, it's because I'm a 2 that I do this thing. The Enneagram and how I utilize the Enneagram actually shows you the box that you've put yourself in and the easiest pathways to get out of it and to learn new patterns of existing, thinking, feeling, and behaving.
So it's not necessarily, thinking about it that way, you're almost using it like you said. I'm just probably going to repeat what you just said back to you, but you're using the label, let's put in quotation marks, and then you're taking that label and you're saying, okay, well, how can I improve upon these things? Not necessarily that they're all bad qualities,
right?
But how can I become more open to this? Or how can I give that a second try? Or think about this differently. So you're taking the label and you're figuring out how to essentially create the best version of yourself with it.
Yep. It's creating more self-awareness so that, you know, instead of when I feel stressed, I behave this way, you can say, before I get stressed, I will do X, Y, and Z. So you're starting to recognize triggers for different things, whether that be stressful things or traumatic things that you've experienced, and you're able to put some support systems in place before those things default, instead of just them happening and going, oh, here we are again. I think we're all there a lot. We're like, all right, here comes whatever.
Yeah.
And so this helps put internal support systems in place and then helps you define what you need to people outside of yourself for what external support looks like too.
Interesting. This is fun. This is not something I talk about a lot.
Okay.
In fact, this is the first time I've ever talked to somebody about this.
Yeah.
This is really cool. So, before we get into more of it, how did you get here? You took, to put it very simply, and if it is deeper than this, I'm sure, but please correct me when I'm wrong at any point. But you took something that we use, kind of like what I was saying, very a lot in our youth to like figuring out who we are, if we're compatible with this person, or if we're going to work out with that person. You took something like that and you figured out a way to monetize it and use it to help people also.
Yeah.
Like more than just a personality test.
Right.
That's probably a big misconception. I'm going to assume that people are like, oh, that's just a personality contest.
Yeah.
Or a personality test. You take it, you figure out who you are, and now you know who you are, right?
And there are actually a lot of people who have worked with me, and I use that term lightly because they'll do the assessment, they'll get the results, and they'll go, great, thanks. Now that I know this, I feel better or I know more. But the work comes after knowing that information. And so both in a one-to-one coaching scenario and in a group or collaborative scenario, the test is just the beginning. I could give you the test and never even tell you your results and probably work with you 6 months to a year on that information that I gleaned even from that assessment, so that we're putting things in place even without you having the knowledge of, oh, an Enneagram 1, 3, 6, whatever. And that's been one thing that I've had to work on, is knowing that it applies to everyone, whether they know everything about the Enneagram or not. This just gives labels to it to simplify it a little bit more. But I think your question was, how did I get here?
Yeah, sorry. I ramble quite often, and sometimes I don't even know what question I'm asking. But yeah, how did you get there?
Yeah. So I got here because, as you read in the intro, I have a master's degree in human services counseling. I got that in 2018, and I graduated with that, I believe. And I was actually out of the country while I was completing my master's degree through an American university, and did an internship in the Netherlands, a little north of Amsterdam, in a city called Alkmaar and Bergen. And while I was there, I was working with teens, and I'm not going to go into the full system of the Dutch school system, but people do apprenticeships in high school to see what they want to study in college. So yeah,
smart.
It is smart. So I had a team of apprentices underneath that I was doing some training with and things like that, as well as seeing some clients too. So while I was achieving that degree, I found the Enneagram. And I was there in the Netherlands for 2 years. And when I got back, there was a lot of confusion about the degree that I got, how the hours would transfer from out of the country, and essentially couldn't get a counseling license in the state of Georgia without going back and doing another 2 years of schooling. So saw myself in a bit of a pickle because I had this degree that I worked really hard for.
Sure.
And if anyone out there's gotten a master's degree, it's not the easiest thing to do, both from a mental, financial, and like emotional place. So I was not in a place to jump back in and try and do another 2 years to get my license. So that's kind of how I stepped into the counseling role, or counseling executive role, as I started as an intake coordinator at a counseling center and then got promoted to executive director. And in that time, I was like, I really want to sit with people again, but I don't want to go back to school for a degree I already have. And I want to use this Enneagram thing a little bit more. So I started searching Enneagram certifications and came across one. Wouldn't recommend it, so I'm not going to mention it. So I did that one first, and then now I've done a couple of others that I do really like and recommend. But I started that, and then I was like, okay. And so I started getting some individual clients through the counseling center. And then I started getting some couple clients through the counseling center. And with working with couples, I started seeing dynamics that I thought would be helpful in the workplace, but never really knew how to adapt it, because it's very deep inner work when you're doing it one-to-one, especially. So I was like, okay, how do I take this super deep thing and corporatize it so that it's surface level, but still impactful? And so in couples work is where I started to see the threads kind of come together to do that. So at the counseling center that I was the director of, we had a lot of partners in Atlanta with different nonprofits. So I started saying, hey, you mind if I do a free workshop for your staff and volunteers, just so that I could see.
Another one of our sponsors today is Jessica Surovchek Photography. Jessica Surovchek Photography offers personalized portrait sessions that bring out the best in every moment. Whether you need family portraits, senior pictures, or photos for your engagement announcements, Jessica combines creativity and expertise to deliver breathtaking images you'll treasure forever. She provides tailored sessions to fit your needs, high-quality images with attention to detail, and fun, friendly, professional service. Capture life's most special moments with Jessica Sorovchek Photography. Book your session today.
Does it translate? And it translated. And so after experiencing a couple of different things in my personal life, I really burnt out and stepped away from that role and fully launched my business, both with individuals and with businesses. And so that's how we're here.
So awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations on all of that. That's amazing. So so you're going to school and you're getting a degree, and then they tell you have to go back and do 2 years more. Had Enneagrams not come up, pretend that they never existed in this timeline, what were you just pursuing to be just a counselor, a therapist, I don't want to say regular because I don't want that to demean or to put down people who do that, but you were just studying to be a counselor. And then the Enneagram thing came in and you're like the meme of the dude that's like looking behind his back, and you're like, wait a minute, that's kind of cool. And so you're able to help people through that avenue without going back to get this extra 2 years.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So the way that it kind of looks, and I found the Enneagram in 2017, started coaching and doing these workshops in 2021, 2022, and then left my job in 2023 to pursue this fully, and then have been doing that since. And the way that it's helpful for me, and I've played around with coach, consultant, all the words that you could kind of try and put into that umbrella. And so for individuals, coach feels good. For businesses and for corporations, consultant or corporate trainer feels good.
Sure.
And it's because specifically with individuals, there are so many coaches that exist, and some of them don't have the training to go into topics that they shouldn't be going into and that should be referred to a therapist. Where I feel equipped is to really hold that boundary. And I have a huge network of therapists that I'm connected to immediately, I say, graduate those people onto therapy. And so a lot of the clients that I have seen in the past have been like for 8 to 10 sessions. And then I'm like, okay, great. Take all of this information you've learned about yourself and go seek some really good therapy. Whereas for businesses and corporations, it's bringing in systems and procedures and all of those things. So it can work 3 to 6 months to a year on a contract and really dive into the nitty gritty of how these people are applying what they've learned to their workplace. So it's been cool to see a realm outside of just a therapy space that I've kind of been able to sit in and that I think suits me better anyways.
What do you like working with more, individuals or corporations?
Corporations, I think.
I was going to say, because the corporation piece of it sounds like almost like you're doing more analytical work with it.
Yes.
In that you're, okay, so like most jobs I've had to take some kind of assessment. A DISC assessment, that rings a bell for almost every job I've taken. And nothing ever happens with it, though. They figure out who they think I am, and usually it's pretty accurate, and then it goes nowhere. But you then, assuming that you would do something similar, is you'd have all these employees take this test, you figure out who they are, or who, generally, and then you get to play with that data then.
Yep.
That sounds fun.
Yes. And so the corporate kind of accreditation that I have is with the Integrative 9. And their assessment, I was not a huge believer in the assessments beforehand because they're the same 50 or 60 questions that they ask every single person, and it doesn't add nuance, and we're humans, so there's a lot of nuance with each one of us. So the Integrative 9 assessment, when I found it, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to use this with everyone because I get a 2-page data spread. It's just percentages. You get 23 to 42 pages of written material. But the magic for me is in the data. And so that is where it's been transformative to work with a group of people because I'm seeing the nuances of the person, even if their resume is everything that this corporation could have wanted, dreamed for. I see the person behind the resume. And so I can kind of merge those things together. I can also see how adaptable they might be to form into certain role requirements that the resume doesn't cover, or is that actually just fluff on the resume? Does the behavior translate? And so that's what has been super fun to apply to a corporate space, even a business owner. a business owner who's forcing themselves to do tasks that they don't like doing. I find myself there every day, not hiring it out right now, but one day we'll get there. But to kind of see these are the struggle areas. So what are the supports that we need to put in place to make those things more accessible and easier to get done? So it can be, I've, tried to explain this to so many people who have no concept of the Enneagram. I'm like, it could literally be a team of one person, just you, or a team of 500, 1,000 plus, that we can adapt this information to support.
That's really cool. That's really cool, especially if you're a data weirdo like me, that you just love the percentages. And you're like, oh my God, this is so nice. It's like a love language.
Yes.
But yeah, that's really cool, dude. I mean, I can imagine. I mean, one thing that stuck out to me that what you just said is that you said that, especially when working with individuals, is you'll see someone for 8 to 10 sessions and then they'll graduate to therapy. That's really cool, just from the perspective of you're acknowledging you as the business owner that, and as the coach, that you've done the work with me that can be done. We're going to graduate you on to another step of your journey, and it doesn't have to be with me. And that's really cool, just from an income perspective of I think a lot of business owners out there, I'd like to think that it's getting better about community over competition, because everybody at the end of the day has to pay the bills. Everyone wants to make their money. Everyone has a dream. But to be able to say everything that I can possibly do to help you is done. Here's a list of 10 people I think you should go head up and see which one of them work for you. Yeah. That's really cool. And I think we're getting there more and more, because I'll be the first to tell you I don't have all the answers. And I have a list, like you said, I have a great network of people that I know have the answers. If I can't help you, here's 15 people that can help you. So that's really cool. And
it's not energizing for me if we're not a good fit anymore.
Right.
And so, yeah, it might, put some money in my pocket, but I left my job because I wasn't energized by it. So why would I force myself into a position again to where I wouldn't be energized by my job and by the clients that I'm working with? I would much rather help you and help me find who fits the next kind of puzzle piece.
And you've been on your own now 2 years or so doing this.
Yeah, almost 2 years.
How is that?
It's stressful. So my husband is getting a master's degree right now.
Good for him.
And we have been paying that out of pocket to not rack up any more debt, but paying that out of pocket while on a kind of commission, not even commission, just based on how many clients I have is how much money is coming through the door. It has been stressful in that regard. However, I wake up every day and I'm like, yep, made the right decision. There is no regret. There is no doubt in my mind that, I, one, have the tools and am equipped to do the job that I am doing. And two, that there is a need for this. There have been times, and again, anyone listening who has owned a business or tried an entrepreneurship venture, I'm sure you've been there, that I have sought out evidence that I should stop. I'm like, yeah, but no one would hire me, right? Or no one needs this, or they're just going to keep using the disc or the Myers-Briggs. It's not going to matter if I send them. And they're like, no, you have to keep going. I mean, both in the US and internationally, people are like, oh, so wait, you could do this and then we could apply it this way, or we could integrate it to our hiring systems and all of this. I'm like, yes. And they're going, yeah, you shouldn't stop. You should definitely keep going.
That's awesome.
So
that is really awesome. And I guess one of the questions that I was dying to ask you is to take something you just said is, how do you convince people that could just go and, I don't know how the DISC program works, but I'll just use that as the example because I've taken that assessment a couple times. They go and buy the assessment for however much that costs for a corporation to do that. Yep. And they give it to their employees, and their employees, that data goes somewhere. You as the employee never really see where it goes. But how do you convince corporations, hey, instead of just doing this little, buying this test, making your employee take it and then not going anywhere, here's what I can do to help you guys work with this data to, like I said in the intro, promote efficiency and profitability? How do you convince people that that's the move rather than to just go and buy the test?
It's a hard sell. It has been a hard sell, at least. And what I'm finding is I am focused a lot of my effort on specifically the Enneagram, because to me, life-changing, right? but I know what it is. But if people don't know what it is, to try and get that in front of them and get them to choose this assessment versus this assessment is a lot harder when one is more easily accessible. Perhaps, they're not having to go through someone. They're just buying it online and sending out the email. Instead, I have shifted and pivoted to my experience. So 10 plus years now in the behavioral health field is a lot and can inform a lot with the work that I do with the Enneagram. And so trying to make myself front and center. And by the way, I use this assessment that could be more efficient, more profitable in the long run, even if it's a higher cost up front. It's getting people to see the value in me and the Enneagram together versus just the Enneagram over something else. Because the magic, like I said, is in that data sheet for me and how I then can take that information and do something with it. And I have not been as confident in that, in saying that to people. And I'm now stepping into that space where, no, it really is it's me and this data.
Sure.
That informs it, and the Enneagram is the tool in which I use to help do that.
Right. Like, because at the end of the day, the data is going to be there regardless, but it's whether you know what to do with it or not.
Exactly.
And it's like, okay, like if a company works with you and they sign, a 6-month contract with you, it might only take a month to get the assessment done. Then you get 5 extra months of helping the company, weave it in, like you said before, weaving it into their hiring practices, weaving it to new employee orientation, all those things.
The existing systems, if you have certain people who report to a superior, but they don't mesh well, or all the feedback is always received as criticism versus feedback, it can either support them in new ways to give feedback or say, actually, let's restructure who reports to who. I know an office that actually restructured their whole office system to make sure that compatible people were sitting next to each other, that you didn't have 2 people super focused on relationship who are going to talk a lot more next to each other, not because they shouldn't be talking, but that it was prohibiting them from doing the work that they needed to do. They then go home stressed because they didn't accomplish the things, but they, kept up a relationship with someone in the office, and that seemed higher priority in the moment. So it's all of those things kind of coming together, and I get a bird's eye view because I'm not in it. And when you're in it, it's hard to see where you can kind of move and shift some things around to do things differently. Or if you have someone who's just focused on data, but they're not a data person, and you're sitting 3 seats over and you're having to talk to people all the time. You talk to people too, but you then switch those 2 people and potentially see productivity rise because you've given them the thing that they're niched at, even if it wasn't specifically what they were hired for. So also with companies and organizations and corporations, the best client for me is the client that wants to do something with that data, because I can get it into their hiring process and they can do, the assessment with me, and then we can do a results session and kind of talk about how they may fit into the overall system. But if they don't then let me into the overall system, the dominoes of change aren't going to be able to fall in the way that they hope for.
Yeah. Wow. That's fun, dude. I love all this. This is fascinating. So when my wife says she's an Enneagram 1, do you know what all of these mean off the top of your head?
I do. Yeah.
So what is an Enneagram 1?
Okay. So we're going to go down the list. There are 9 types.
Okay.
So that also shortens things from the DISC, because there's those 4 different letters that you can mix around, the same as the Myers-Briggs. So this is just 9 types. And I'm going to talk about their motivation and their fear for each type. So the type 1 is motivated to be seen as right and good. Right and good are relative. Every Enneagram type 1 has a different version of what right is and even what wrong is. And they are fearful of people not seeing them that way, or kind of falling short and being wrong or being bad.
Huh. Interesting.
Enneagram type 2, which is what I am, they are motivated to feel needed and appreciated and wanted and desired. And they are fearful of being abandoned or kind of left behind or unneeded. So Justin.
I don't even need to hear the rest. That's continue.
Type 3 is motivated to be seen as successful and to achieve, but success is again relative, and the needle keeps moving. And so that's kind of the pitfall of the type 3, is they're fearful of failure. But if the needle keeps moving, it's harder and harder to meet the success goals that you have.
Let me ask you this. Can I interrupt you?
Absolutely.
Does this evolve for a person? Or are you pretty generally that you are that number?
Yep. So there's going to be a lot of, maybe not.
I'm sure there's a lot of
but
opinions
a lot
about
of
that.
opinions for me and for the research that I've done, for the accreditations that I've done, all of those things. You are your type. Again, not putting you in a box,
Sure.
showing you the box. And your type doesn't change. How you cope and what you do might change. And there are different levels of integration, different levels of self-awareness. So a lot will shift, and the way that it looks and shows up, because I'll sit with clients who are in their 40s or 50s and they'll go, oh, this was me at 20. Like, yes, think about that. Think about you at 20, especially in the quote unquote negative
Sure.
behaviors. It is when we're still trying to figure out who we are. Once we learn self-awareness and all of those things and we integrate it in, it looks a lot different. So yes, I think you are your type. But I think that there's a lot of different behaviors and a lot of different ways that we learn to cope or support ourselves that shift how that looks and how that affects us on a day-to-day basis.
Awesome. Continue.
So our type 4s are motivated by the need to be different, unique. They want to offer you something that no one else can offer you. And their fear is to be misunderstood or mundane. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to need to take this.
Yes.
I'm going to take this.
Our type 5s need to be competent and to have knowledge. Their fear is to be depleted, especially of energy. So a lot of type 5s will say, once their energy is gone, they have to refill it. But for me, I might be able to refill my energy by sleeping. Their energy is very specific in ways that it needs to be refilled. And I've worked with a lot of type 2 and type 5 couples, a lot. And the energy piece always comes up as like the hardest thing for really anyone else to understand for the type 5. So I'm talking about this a little longer specifically. But for the type 5, the energy capsule might be, like think of a lip gloss tube or something, or a chapstick. Whereas mine might be my 40-ounce Stanley cup or like a 50-gallon box. Like I have a lot more energy to give, and to fill it up, I can fill it up a little and then give more. Whereas the type 5s is small and they have to refill it to be able to give more. And so they're really intentional about how they use their energy.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay.
So then our type 6 needs safety and security. Again, safety and security are relative. And they are fearful of all of it. Just everything.
All of it.
Fear is
all the things.
Yes. So uncertainty, instability,
Sure.
But it's all motivated by fear. And so we're trying to gain safety and security. A type 6 always has, a answer for any type of scenario. Worst case scenarios, they've
mapped it out.
And they have things that they can put in place to prevent some of those things from happening too. So then our type 7s, motivated by spontaneity, they need freedom. Their fear is to be trapped, especially emotionally, and in quote unquote negative emotions. So they're looking for all of these things to kind of distract them from feeling too deeply about something negatively, quote unquote negative. Because I don't think any emotions are negative. I think they're all helpful. But we see them as bad.
Sure.
Bad emotions or things that take away from our efficiency or how we're able to show up in the world. Then we have our type 8, who's motivated by the need for control. This is not dominance necessarily. A lot of people confuse 8s with narcissists. Different. The controlling is simply so that they are not left vulnerable, so that they're not blindsided by something. So it's control of self and environment, but in really specific ways. They're often leaders. However, every 8 I've ever spoken to or worked with says, I do not have to be the leader. If someone else is leading and they are leading well and no one is getting stepped on by their leadership, fine. But the minute that I don't feel like they're leading well, or I think someone's being harmed by how they're leading, they'll step in and kind of take it over. So they fight for the underdog as well as kind of trying to keep vulnerability from self.
Okay.
And then finally, our type 9s, my husband is a type 9. They are motivated to keep the peace at all costs, and they fear conflict. So anything to avoid conflict, peace, harmony is the goal, even if that means denying self a little bit or keeping their opinions to themselves to try and not cause conflict. Anything, is kind of dulled in themselves. So I always tell my 9 friends, mostly, not always my 9 clients, but sometimes, that I love when they get angry, because that's something that they typically try and squander. So it's very fun to see a 9 get angry.
Sure.
And I've asked a lot of 9s. Someone wrote, her name is Sarah Jane Case, wrote a book called The Enneagram Letters, and it's poems and letters to each of the Enneagram types, or kind of from the perspective of the types. And she mentions fire and kind of volcanoes a lot with type 9s. So I've asked clients, does it feel like a volcano erupts when you finally unleash that anger? Sure. They said it feels like multiple volcanoes. Yeah. And when one goes, they all go. And so it's this chain eruption versus just one big eruption.
Yeah. I can't wait to take this test because I picked multiple pieces out of a lot of that. Do you ever talk to somebody and you can tell what they are without them taking a test?
Yes. So when I was working, before I did the Integrative 9 accreditation, I didn't use an assessment. I kind of had this one, it's called Quest, and it gives you your top 3 possibilities, and it's really easy to take. I do that in some workshops that are shorter. And then from there, I would just kind of direct the conversation in certain ways to see how they would respond. And that would help me learn, okay, it sounds like the motivation here is this. I do that sometimes in networking events. Just heads up to everybody out there. If we have a topic and we're like, okay, how do you delegate? Or why do you not delegate? Hearing those types of things and why and how help me understand, we could be talking to a type 6 here.
Yeah.
Or we could be talking to a type 8 here. Or we could be talking to a type 1. So yes, I didn't always use assessments. I can do that sometimes. But the biggest thing is assessments can be wrong. My assessment can be wrong. It has not been yet, but it can be because it's a computer system.
Sure.
And with the Enneagram, the biggest thing is I can't tell you what you are. You have to determine that, because that motivation typically strikes really deep. I have not met a client other than Enneagram 7s. They are special and a whole separate entity who has not read that and gone, shit.
Yeah.
How do you know that? That information.
They know me better than I know me.
Exactly. And so that's kind of what we're looking to happen. So if you took the assessment and it came up type 6, but then you read a little bit more about the type 3 and you're like, no, that's me. Great. Then let's totally leave the assessment to the side and let's talk about the type 3 and how that shows up for you. The biggest other kind of misconception here is that if you're 1, you're not connected to any of the others.
Sure.
You should have pieces of all of them. The whole kind of goal is to be able to pull on different strengths from the other Enneagram types to create support systems. In the Enneagram structure, there is that built in. I won't go into all of it because it's a lot of info, but you have wings, which are the 2 numbers on either side of your number.
Okay.
So I lean more on my wing 1 than I lean on my wing 3. You also go to 1 number in stress. By default, I go to type 8, so I get much bigger and more assertive and need more control when I'm stressed. But when I'm in a good place, I try to think about how would a type 8 approach this situation. So even in what I said earlier about needing to lead with me and my experience and the Enneagram as a tool versus just kind of hoping that the Enneagram itself would open some doors for me, that is me stepping into much more of a type 8 confidence place than I would typically be able to do if I wasn't thinking about what behaviors would be supportive. And then you also default to 1 number in growth. And for the type 2, that's the type 4. But if you look at the Enneagram symbol, a lot of people think it's a pentagram. It's not. The lines are actually pointing to where you go in stress and health. So it doesn't have that, designated, but on the assessment that I have up in the top corner, it has that symbol and it highlights the different arrows for the Enneagram type of the client that I'm seeing. So that's included kind of in there. And then you also have subtypes. You have most ways that you show up in conflict and relationship. And it all kind of works in this system, which is why it's such a well-rounded assessment versus some others that are just looking at that behavior, but not at all focused on the why of the behavior.
What will, because I assume with anything, because this isn't, I'm going to assume here again,
Yeah.
you please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going to assume that this isn't a super widely practiced field. Like, this is not all over the place. So, and with a lot of things, I mean, I interviewed somebody a few weeks back who she's a chiropractor, but she does it with the use of like sound wave technology. It's something I never heard of, but it's essentially some way that this machine creates these micro sound waves that essentially, like, if you have like a tweaked back or a rotated disc or something, this thing could over time put that back into place without you even feeling it.
Wow.
Very weird, very different, very scientific, very smart. She's a genius. But I said, now listen, with any field like this that is a common a common field, hers being the chiropractors, yours being whether it's counseling, therapy, whatever, there's going to be people out there that think everything you're saying is a bunch of hoo-ha.
Yep.
What are your biggest critics saying about you?
Yeah, I think the biggest critics are saying it's too emotional, and it can be. It's my job to not allow it to be in spaces where it's not supposed to be, or that it's too deep, or, oh, we don't want to talk about childhood trauma in the workplace, obviously, and we're not going.
I don't want to talk about it anywhere.
So it's kind of, that's why it's been interesting for me to kind of pitch it to different people and hear feedback, because I could say, hey, this is the work that I do, and I would like them to take this assessment and never tell them what the assessment is. And it would be a totally different experience than if I just lead with the Enneagram. And then a lot of them have heard it from their wife and they're like, oh, that made her super emotional. Or, oh, that's a meme on Instagram. Or, oh, that's not, how is that applicable to what we're trying to accomplish here? And to them, I would say, well, let's see what happens. Let's see what we do with it differently, or trying to change that perspective. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is emotional, because it can be. It was an incredibly emotional experience for me when I found it and utilized it with myself. It has been when I do it with individuals, but the impact goes so much deeper. So I always say personal and professional life, because even if I just touch on the professional, it's going to leak into the personal if we never even mention it, because it's patterns of behavior. So if you see it happening at work, it's also most likely happening at home.
Do you find that a lot, I'm going to speak, of course, only for America, because we're in America, and we can't speak to other countries, although you might be able to because you've been abroad and you've been to other places. But do you find that us as Americans don't like to be self-aware?
So let me kind of roundabout answer your question.
Yeah.
There are people, I am one of them, who like to try and type countries as a whole. So I lived in the Netherlands. Netherlands are type 1. They do things right. Everyone else does things wrong. That is just how it is as a country. So not every person there is a type 1.
But if you looked at the stats.
So you're kind of conforming to as well. That's why I'm so grateful for all of the travel that I've done and the extensive cultural experiences that I've gotten to have, is because I can then bring that nuance in. I've had a number of second career clients who migrated first from Nigeria to London and then from London to Atlanta. And so that's been kind of really cool to see too. But America used to be a type 3. So success, very success driven. We're the best, and wanting everything to kind of line up to we're the best. And then there was a shift. I don't exactly know when the shift happened, but a shift more to type 6, where it's kind of more fear driven. And again, on that structure of the Enneagram, 3s and 6s are connected. So it still can kind of look like that sometimes, but fear is kind of the undercurrent. And so I think with that, with too much information, now what? I mean, there are so many times that I am like, why did I become so self-aware? It's
Yeah.
exhausting to try and do self-work with this information I now have about myself
Right.
versus someone who's a lot more oblivious to themselves and their patterns of behavior. So I think it is like fear-based almost, like, okay, but now what? Now what do I do with this information?
Right.
Or they just want to keep it light and fun so that the fear doesn't take over. So a lot of people, like, quote unquote, self-diagnose their Enneagrams through Instagram because a lot of people are making content around that. And if you look for it, you can find it. And so I think it has been harder here. I travel back to the Netherlands at least once or twice a year and have conversations with people who I know or who I meet in professional spaces. And they are much more open to, wow, we need that in our workspace like tomorrow. Whereas here it's been a little bit more of a, we'll see, we'll let you know kind of response.
Why do you think I saw this reel the other night that was talking about how the United States is one of, if not maybe the only country still today that thinks about work as the end all be all.
Yeah.
Like every other country, they're just like, yeah, take 2 weeks of vacation time. Like, no problem. The US is like, oh, a lot of jobs, all these jobs out there that are just like, oh, you get unlimited PTO. And it's like, yeah, but like if I try to take 2 weeks, you're going to be like, well, you can't. Why do we prioritize work so much? That's not a question I expect you to be able to answer.
Yeah.
Because I don't have an answer.
Right. I think if I just right off the top, it is like from a security standpoint,
Sure.
safety, security. I think, again, it's fear-based to try and even go and take that 2 weeks, right? Because you're walking in, and I think we're almost, not all, but a lot of us are programmed to anticipate no, or the answer is already no. And so we walk into spaces a little bit more timid and Gen Z is not doing this, by the way. I don't know what Kool-Aid they have drank, but maybe it's a great thing. Maybe it's not. I don't know yet. But a lot of ways that I see Gen Z kind of show up in workspaces is how I have seen people show up in Europe workspaces. And it's not across the board. There are now a lot of American-run companies in other countries. So, they've got issues too, but it is interesting that it is kind of all this, no, but what if and then, the paycheck. My husband walked away from 2 jobs in the time that it took me to finally step down because I was making more money at that time. And I was like, sure, quit your job. We'll be fine. And then it came to me being so burnt out. I needed to quit to be mentally healthy.
Right.
I needed to walk away. And I was like, I can't because I have the paycheck. Like I have the bigger paycheck.
Right.
So I can't do that. And then I did do that and we've been fine. And he was like, why do I get to pursue my dreams, but you don't get to pursue yours simply because it makes more, you're making more money.
Right. Why are you locked in a box?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so that was a place that I didn't even recognize how much I was keeping myself from pursuing, things that would make me a more healthy, well-rounded person, either by systemically kind of putting myself there or mentally. And I think that is very much an American mindset. Just thinking about, we moved from a house to an apartment last year.
How many people in your life judged you for that?
Well, that was the thing, right? Is I was terrified to tell people because it felt like a step backwards. But in Europe, there's hardly any standalone houses,
right?
Much less like the footprint, specifically in the Netherlands too, a footprint for a standalone house, you've got money.
Right.
That's probably been in your family for years, or you you do something with the land around it and all of that. Whereas all the other houses are connected and then a lot of them are apartments. So that would never even be a thought that I would have had living there. And here it was this like, I don't want to tell people because I don't want them to think X, Y, and Z.
You're automatically going to judge.
Exactly.
Even your closest friends would be like,
right.
Really?
Yeah. Yep. So I think just in general, whether it's work-based, it's the success-driven, and maybe it's the, American dream. And if you step backwards from what that kind of image was placed in our minds, whether it was for us or not.
Right.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's an interesting question. I think everyone would have a different experience of why they feel like it takes up so much space too.
I saw another thing because me and my wife went through this because we definitely went through a phase of being judged so when we got married, we were living in Kennesaw, in downtown Kennesaw, in an apartment that was, really small, but this was at the time that the inflation was kind of starting and things were getting expensive and rent was going through the roof. And we were just like, that's, whatever. We can do it, but we just aren't going to be able to save as much as we'd like to. So we got married, and my parents are empty nesters now. And they said, listen, we'll cut you a deal and we'll let you live with us for anywhere from, now to 12 months max.
Mm.
During that time, you're going to save money for a down payment on a house. And the amount of people that when I said, oh, we're moving in with my parents, because we did end up doing it and we did live with them for about 10 months before we found a place. Telling people that you moved back in with your parents after you've left and been on your own, they're like, you loser. No other country in the world thinks that way. You see, especially in some of our, and our friends over in Asia and India, I mean, their families live with each other for generations.
Yeah.
I mean, you're living with your great-grandmother, your grandmother, your parents, and it just, sure, some people might venture out, but for the most part, I mean, families are taking care of each other in other countries, and we're lucky to say that my parents gave us a great opportunity, but it's like, man, because you get that, oh yeah, we're living with my parents right now, and they're like, oh. Mm-hmm. Or same thing, like, we sold the house and we got rid of our house and we're going to an apartment. People are like, okay.
Yeah.
There's preconceived opinions about it before they even know your situation.
Yeah.
Like, they have no idea what's happening.
Yeah.
And it's like, to those people at the time, I really took it. Like, I think a lot about like what people think about me. And so I was like, man, these people aren't right. Maybe I am.
Yeah.
But then I was like, nah, dude, I got a house.
Yeah.
Where's your house?
Right.
My parents, sure, I lived with my mom and dad for 10 months and I didn't love it because me and my mom are both very strong-headed and there was a bicker here and there, but dude, we wouldn't be in our position if it weren't for my parents.
Oh yeah.
Internally grateful for that. But just like the thought that other countries, they don't feel that way.
No.
They're just like, come on in.
Right.
Let's do this thing.
Yeah.
Or in another country, they'd be like, oh, you moved back with your parents. That's so smart.
Right.
Here, that's not the mindset.
Mm-hmm. Definitely from
Financial
standpoint. It does suck. Listen, when we moved into the apartment, I was like, okay, listen, we signed a 13-month lease. What I need you to do, mom and dad, is I need you to buy a new house with a basement apartment so you can move in.
For real.
We also do hope to leave the country in the next 2-3 years.
Permanently?
Hopefully. That's kind of the hope. And that's the other wonderful thing about this business is it can be done from anywhere.
Yeah.
So I've done a lot of virtual work and I've done a lot of in-person work. I prefer in-person. I'll fly. I'll be there. But I can do this from anywhere. But that was the biggest thing was we don't want to sink money into something when we need to be saving money for a potential international move. So now I'm like, all right, mom and dad, I need you to have an apartment. Then you guys can rent that out once we leave. We'll pay some rent. That's fine. And then you can rent it out as an additional income stream. So I've been trying to sell that to them.
Yeah.
But it's not a widely accepted stance, even if it makes all the sense in the world on paper, because it seems, it looks a certain way and the image of it is really.
Sure. What's that look like in terms, I know you said you're a few years from that, but completely just moving to another country. Where would you go? Would you go to the Netherlands?
I would want to go to the Netherlands for sure. I think having lived there for 2.5-ish years, I was there for a couple months and then left and then I was back. I know, the transit system. I understand the people and the culture. My best friend of, 20 plus years lives there. Her husband is Dutch. They met online. And so we have people there. We have community there already. And we go there at least once, twice a year, like I said. So we're very connected to the Netherlands. My Dutch is limited. When I'm there, it's a lot better. I would love to start language school soon, but it kind of hinges on the master's degree. My husband is getting his master's in applied behavior analysis.
Okay, I was just going to say, what does he do?
He works at North Georgia Autism Center. So he works with kids on the autistic spectrum. And he's working on his master's to become a supervisor in the field. And that opens up a lot of opportunities, both for him practicing on his own. And that certification actually transfers to the European Union.
Amazing.
So he would be able to do the same job or start his own business and work with like expat kids because that's the other thing, is trying to, for people who are in the country who are not from the country, it might be easier for them to find services in English. And so he would be able to provide, a service like that in English that they might not be able to find.
Awesome.
So we got to get him through the master's, and then he has like a contract with work that he has to be there for X number of months after graduating. So it kind of looks like end of 2026, beginning of 2027 is kind of the hope. And then hopefully my business is, steady and, again, virtual and in person, like a good mix of both, so that I would still be able to work with any clients that I accrued while we do the move.
Wow. That's fun.
Yeah.
But moving to a whole country, I mean,
yeah,
I moved a lot growing up, but that was just within the United States. I can't even imagine just like leaving the country and being like, obviously you'll be back, but I mean, your permanent residence would be not in the United States. That's so crazy to me. But that's also because I have, compared to you, my friend, have a boring life. I have left the United States one time, and it was for my honeymoon, and I got COVID on my honeymoon in Mexico. So the one time I've left the country, it's not been a great experience.
When did you guys get married?
June of 22.
So we got married February 2020. We went to Mexico for a honeymoon. We came back to the world shut down. We were in the Cancun airport, and I was like, why are people wearing face masks? Like, it just had started. And then we got back here, and actually the first confirmed case in Georgia, my dad's a pastor in Roswell, and it was at the school of one of the youth that go to his church. It's not even just close to home. It is home.
Yeah.
But I think I went to like 18 different grocery stores just to find toilet paper and like some canned goods, because we had nothing coming back from our honeymoon. So
wow,
COVID, but we experienced COVID.
Oh, that's crazy. Luckily, in a couple of weeks, we are returning to Mexico. My parents wanted to do a family vacation to Cancun this time. So hopefully no sickness in Mexico for round 2. If I get sick in Mexico again, I'm never going back. I'd love to travel to other countries and see the world. But, if every time I leave the United States, I get really sick. I'm just going to go anywhere. But yeah, I hear about all these stories about people traveling the world or potentially moving to another piece of the world. And I'm like, we are so small here compared to the rest of the world.
Even if you just I've seen an overlay of like the major Europe countries, like overlaid over Texas.
Right.
They like fit in it.
Right.
And so when I told people that while I was gone for 2 years, I traveled to like 20 or 22 countries, they're like, what? And I'm like, it was like a 1 night or 2 night trip on a train. Like, it was easy.
Yeah.
It took me 3 hours to get there. And then my dad came to visit, and we drove from the Netherlands to Normandy Beach because he really wanted to go there. And we drove through Belgium. We stopped at a couple places in Belgium, stopped at a couple of smaller cities in France, and then made our way there. And that was like a day trip.
Right. It's crazy to think about how, like I just said, how small we are, but really how big we are also.
Right.
I mean, just like you said, I mean, there are some countries that are the size of Maine, the state.
Right.
Or, I mean, think, like you said, how many countries can fit inside of Texas or California or Alaska?
Yeah.
It's huge. The United States is huge.
Yeah.
But there's so much more world out there.
Yeah. And that's what's so interesting. Like, the smallness of it is just disconnection, like geographical disconnection.
Right.
From another place. It's almost as cheap for me to fly to Amsterdam as it would be for me to fly to Minneapolis.
Right.
Sometimes, depending on when you're booking the flight and when you're going. And that's insane.
It's incredible to think about. I mean, it just makes me like sad because I'm like, what am I doing? I need to travel more, and we don't have children yet. So, I mean, it's like, now's the time to do it. I haven't even been on a cruise before. Have you been on a cruise?
I've been on 4 cruises.
Wow. I'm jealous.
Yeah.
My mother always got really bad vertigo, so we're anywhere that revolves around. And everyone's always like, she can take the medicine. I'm like, yeah, but she refuses. But this is awesome, dude. So with this work being so, I don't want to say niche, but with it being a very specific type of thing, have there been months that have been like, or are you starting to find a pretty decent rhythm in whether it's, signing a contract with a company that they have to pay you, over the course of 12 months, 6 months. So that's guaranteed income. I mean, have you figured out kind of a way to just make it work for you?
No.
None of us have we?
There are definitely some months that have been like, whoa. And then there are some months that are like, what? What's happening?
Right.
December. 2023 December was dead. Last December, all of a sudden I had some clients come out of, the woodwork and go, hey, we'd like to do a workshop now that we have that information. And they had the assessments 6 to 8 months ago. And then they just had decided, okay, now we want to try and apply this into our team. And so a bunch happened in December, and I was expecting that to be a completely dead month. So there is no rhyme or reason to it right now. I'm hoping that this will be kind of the year that I figure out too what it looks like, because in networking, there have been a lot of kind of leniency things that I've done to my own systems that I feel more comfortable putting into place. So it's kind of reworking those to be steady and consistent across all of my clients versus kind of bending the rules for some people that I know. Sorry, everyone. Love you very much. Consistency is key when you're, building a business, especially if I'm trying to build it, to use it to apply for a visa. Yeah.
Wow. So fun. So cool. It's really cool getting to sit in front of different people and hear about how they do. I mean, because your work is fascinating. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Do you ever think about what you do, really? Do you ever just especially when you talk to somebody like me who has no idea anything about this, and I'm sitting here gassing you up. It's when people, it's probably the similar thing when people are like, oh, this is so cool that you do. I talked to somebody before you this morning. She was like, this is so freaking cool. She's like, you have a whole thing.
Yeah.
You have the microphones they're on arms.
Yeah.
You got the camera. And I was just like, yeah, it's cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool. But do you ever think wow, I'm really doing some cool stuff, right?
Yeah.
This is really cool behavioral analysis stuff.
Yeah, I definitely feel that talking to someone who it's a new system for them. And so the geek in me comes out, when I'm
to start to get really fiery about it. Yeah.
And then on the flip side, sitting with a client and watching a moment of realization happen for them, or with a team, whatever that looks like, and seeing it apply and go, yeah, this works. This is it. And for me to be able to facilitate the knowledge in a way that I have some friends who are Enneagram coaches. I have a friend in the UK who does it. I have a friend in California and Texas. So there are people doing it. But the way that we do the work is all so very different. And so just talking to them and going, yeah, this is how my brain works. And this is just a really cool version of getting to apply it and work with other people. Again, in a way that when I was doing my master's degree in counseling, I never saw this avenue of working with people. And so it's really cool to kind of pave my own path in doing it.
Yeah, that's really cool. So my friend, every conversation I have with somebody always gets to a point where I get to ask them a collection of questions that has nothing to do with what we talked about. They're all very fun first date questions. There's a couple of deep ones, but for the most part, they're just kind of fun ways to get to know you, whether I'm sitting across from the queen or, someone who does Enneagram, what would you call it? Coaching, Enneagram coaching. They get to answer the same set of questions.
Cool.
What's your favorite movie?
Crap. Oh, I know you said some get deep, but what a heavy hitter to start with.
Right.
Favorite movie. Let's just go Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Really?
Yeah. If there's something that I could just watch over and over and over again, probably I'll give you one more, a lame one. But again, if I could watch
lame one,
lame to potentially the general public, How to Train Your Dragon.
That's a good movie, though.
It's a great movie.
I think people are really, especially with animated movies now, people are really coming around to seeing that animation is just a medium and it doesn't necessarily have to be mean kids movie.
Right.
A really good example of that is, I think it was made by the same studio too, is my wife and I just watched The Wild Robots.
Yes.
And I saw that, and my wife's a second grade teacher, so she knows that it's a book series. Yep. I didn't know that. And we're watching the movie and she's like, this is freaking phenomenal. And I saw that it had been nominated for all the Oscars and all these awards. And I was like, just this animated movie. And movies like It, the Spider-Verse movies are a good example, or How to Train Your Dragon. Animation is just a form of storytelling. And it doesn't have to necessarily mean kids' movies. And some of these animated movies are really damn good. How to Train Your Dragon is one of them. I mean, they're making it live action now. I mean,
I'm skeptical but excited.
very skeptical, but very excited.
And I think for me, it's also a movie that makes me feel. There are movies that are gorgeous to look at.
Right.
But would I keep going back to them? Not necessarily.
Right.
So I think, a feel movie, or, Lord of the Rings and the story and the lore and everything that's built around this world. I'm a huge fantasy reader. So as well, that just kind of brings out all of the cool imagery that we read about in books too.
Sure. What was your first job ever?
My first job ever.
Hey guys, I want to talk to you a little bit about the company that makes your morning drive happen every week. Are you looking to elevate your business and your brand? Hammerhead Creations is here to help. They offer top-tier marketing services, including social media management, website design, and Google page optimization, ensuring your business reaches the right audience. Whether it's a side hustle or your full-time grind, their expert team, me, is ready to help you grow. Plus, if you're into podcasting like me, Hammerhead Creations offers full support for both in-house shows and external podcast creation. From concept to production, we will help you bring your ideas to life. Visit www.hammerheadcreations.com and discover how we can take your business or your podcast or both to the next level. Hammerhead Creations, swim with the big sharks.
I mean, other than babysitter, as is every millennial girl's probably first job.
That's most of my guests' first jobs.
So I think first,
W-2 job.
First W-2 job, I worked at a wedding invitation store in downtown Roswell. Yeah. And so I was doing ordering and invoicing and working with brides and their moms. And, we had other inventory in the store as well, but primarily we did wedding invitations.
Huh, fun.
Yeah.
If tomorrow was your last day on Earth, what would your last meal be?
Some form of pasta. Probably, I don't know, like a shrimp scampi. Something with some garlic bread. I don't eat meat. So it's like salmon or shrimp with pasta and like a creamy, lemony, garlicky sauce.
Ooh. The garlic bread too. That's fire.
Yeah.
Oh, a good garlic bread.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Yep.
You are organizing a music festival and you get to pick your 3 headliners. Who are those 3 headliners?
Dead or alive, or do they have to be alive?
Dead or alive?
Okay.
Good question.
Queen.
God, I knew you were going to say that. I just knew it.
Yeah.
Yes, great answer. I love Queen.
I had on a Queen shirt, and then I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll go neutral.
No, dude, if you walked up in here with a Queen shirt, I would have been like, hell freaking yeah, dude.
So Queen, I think Billie Eilish, and then, we'll do someone else who's like current. Teddy Swims. Yeah.
That's a good lineup, both talent and just like music festival wise. Like you got like Queen, Billy, Teddy Swims. He's really doing something.
He is.
I think people I would love to see Teddy Swims go on tour with Post Malone and Jelly Roll. Those 3 together as the tattooed face.
Yes. Yeah.
Could sing country, but also could sing rock, but also could do hip hop and metal. Like those 3 dudes.
Yeah. Yeah. Fire.
And Jelly Roll and Posty are already going on tour this year together anyway.
Oh.
So they're doing a stadium tour.
Cool.
It's called the Big Ass Stadium Tour.
Of course.
And they just need to get Teddy Swims to be their opener or something. That'd be fire. That'd be sick. On a day that when you're not caring for other people and taking care of other people, what does a day of self-care look like for you?
Day of self-care looks like making a really big breakfast, like a warm, hearty breakfast, and either reading or catching up on some video games. And then again, eating something. I mean, it's going to surround food and comfort things. So I've got a comfy blanket. I've got a nice candle going. And honestly, for me too, it would probably look a little like planning the week, but not necessarily from a super strict standpoint, but just kind of knowing what's happening so that I don't get lost and jerked out of that self-care day the next morning that I wake up. So kind of looking ahead and then kind of doing inventory of how am I feeling? What is this? What's going on right now? And then eating really yummy food, reading as much as possible, cuddling with my dog, my little 9-pound miniature pinscher, and playing video games.
What's the video game outlook for you right now? Like, what do you play?
I play a lot, primarily on Xbox and Switch.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Never would have guessed. Yeah. Let's talk video games.
So, all right.
What are you playing right now?
Right now, I am Disney Dreamlight Valley recently came out with some updates. Probably going to head back into Minecraft soon because there's a whole new biome and like a whole trial dungeon chamber thing that you can go to. I play Minecraft with my husband. That's like a hobby of ours. Also playing a game called Return to Moria on the Xbox, which is Lord of the Rings kind of based, but it's the dwarves in Moria. So that when they go underground and defeat Smaug and all of that. So you're in the mines and you're kind of trying to revitalize them. So yeah, those are kind of the biggest things happening right now.
I'm having trouble with video games right now because I feel like I've got all three. I've got a PlayStation 5. I've got the newer, the digital little Xbox. And then I've got a Switch that never gets touched. I feel so bad about it. And I've always said like, and I had the PlayStation first. And I always say like, okay, so my big budget, big action, God of War, Spider-Man, those guys get played on the PlayStation, which is hooked up to the living room TV. So I get a bigger cinematic experience. Yeah. The Xbox is hooked up to a monitor in the office. And that's where I play Call of Duty, Fortnite, stuff like that. But right now, I'm just having trouble. I'm having trouble being an indie game guy. Okay. I want to be less mainstream with games because I know there are so many good games out there. Yeah. One that like jumps out to me is like Limbo. Limbo. I haven't
played it, but I've seen it.
It's so good. That's not like a AAA title, but it's so well made and so good. Yeah. But I have trouble playing games that aren't these huge franchises. Sure. And right now, I'm like I just bought this Quiet Place game on PlayStation. Yeah. Very cool because it uses your headset. Have you seen this? Oh, it's so cool.
Terrifying.
It's so terrifying. But I also love Minecraft. Okay. So I love that you love Minecraft because me and my family, every once in a while, me and my brother and dad and sister will all just go play Minecraft. That's awesome. So much fun.
Yeah. Last year, we tried to get all of the achievements in Minecraft. I think we did all but 2 or 3 of them. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But we should definitely chat about indie games.
We should.
After, because I could probably give you some specifically on the Switch. Again, kind of the same as you, is I have different games that I want to play on different platforms. Right. Some I need in my hand. Sure. And some I want on the big screen. And I found some really good games through the Switch.
There's this one that it's been like here, like it's been like right here. And every time I get on the Switch store, it's on the Xbox store now. It might even be on PlayStation also. I see it every single time I pull up the store and I'm like, I should just give the damn thing a go. And Stardew Valley. My gosh. Are you obsessed?
I'm obsessed with Stardew Valley.
I see it every time I launch the damn store and I'm like, I've seen this win so many awards. Everybody talks about it.
So good.
Is it?
I think I have multiple farms. I also have a farm with my husband. We also did a farm with 2 other people. But during COVID specifically, I think I put almost 300 hours into one farm. I'm now up to like, I don't know, 600 hours or something on that one farm because I'll just go back to it sometimes and keep crafting my wine and my jelly and selling stuff and going into the caves. Yeah, I love Stardew Valley. That was kind of what I had a Game Boy when I was younger, had a Game Boy Advance and things like that. But Stardew Valley really got me back into finding joy in gaming. My husband's a huge gamer, so he plays a lot that I don't play. But yeah, Stardew Valley definitely opened the world. That I played Link's Awakening, a Zelda game, played a lot of the Zelda franchise now. So yeah.
I'm trying to get my wife into gaming, but she just never did it growing up. And like, even when we play like Mario Kart on the Switch, like she always asks me, like when she sees me playing like God of War, Spider-Man, she's like watching my hands. She's like, how do you even know what to do? I'm just like, I've just done it since I was like 5. So I just know how to, I just know how to hold the controller. I know exactly what to do with what fingers. And we play like, we'll play like the side scroller, like Mario games on the
Mhm.
Switch. And she'll admit to this. So I'm not
Yeah.
body bagging her. She's just a useless partner. Like she's just like, I keep dying. And I'm like into it. So I'm just like, kick your ass in the gear.
Yeah.
And other than that, like all the video games I play, she could argue, besides maybe Minecraft, they're all violent. And I like want to show her that there's more to gaming than just violent games. And I know Stardew Valley is one of them. She always appreciated when I go through like my every like year and a half, 2-year phase of Minecraft where I play the shit out of it for like 8 months and I put it down, don't touch it for like 6 months.
Yep.
And then I pick it back up and I'm just like obsessed with it again. I think I'm about to enter that phase again. But I want to do more indie gaming because there's far more out there than just like Call of Duty.
Yes. Yeah.
I love like Assassin's Creed games and stuff. And I know this new one keeps getting delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed.
My husband has an Assassin's Creed tattoo.
That's best.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Can recommend to you that, guys, though, if especially it's on Xbox only, it's the Indiana Jones game.
I think he has played that. I haven't.
I would recommend it. It's very fun. Love the video game talk. I never talk video games on here, so that's awesome.
Cool.
When someone brings up video games, I'm like, yes, somebody else is a nerd. But next one, what does success look like to you?
Success looks like being able to create a life that feels good. Being able to create a life that feels good, even if that's making, $1,000 a month or $50,000 a month. If I can find a way to make the success that I have fit into the way I want to feel and the experience I want to have every day in my life, I'm successful.
I love it. What is something that very little people know about you?
I used to be a freelance makeup artist.
Really?
A number of years. Yep. Did weddings and worked out of a hair salon doing individual clients, and I can sing.
You can sing?
Mm-hmm.
Well, like, I guess like, no, it's going to be like, I can sing. And you're like, really? And you're like, yeah, I'm pretty bad though. It's like, well, I can sing too. Yeah. What do you sing?
Anything. I mean, I was a worship leader for a couple of years at my dad's church and was doing that out of the country too. But now you can find us sometimes at Guston's on Friday nights. But
really?
Me and my husband, he can sing too. Whenever we go out to karaoke, we go with other people who can and cannot sing. There's mix, and they all know that. But we're like the 2 hours before we leave, we're practicing. We're deciding what we're singing, how we're singing it. Are we doing individuals? Are we doing a duet?
That's so awesome.
So like Shallow is kind of our go-to song.
Oh, yeah.
And then,
great song.
But also throwing a Pink Pony Club in there. And
that's awesome. I love that. Couple more. What is something that no amount of money will get you to do?
That's a good, probably cheat on my husband.
That's a good answer.
Yeah. There's probably some other things, but.
Yeah, that's a good one. And then
hit him, slap him, something, fine, but no cheat. Saw something, he sent me a thing recently and it was like, for $1.5 million or whatever, you have to either send your husband to jail or like slap him in the face or something. And then you just see an image of this woman like running, trying to catch her husband.
That's funny that you bring that up because literally in the episode that I recorded this morning, we talked about that very concept. And like she said, her answer was hurt somebody. And I was like, that's very deep. She was like, although if you've seen that video of the guy that's like, if the wife comes to him and says, for $50 million, would you punch me in the face? And he's just like, absolutely.
Yeah.
She's like, honey, he's like, $50 million. I'm punching you twice.
Yep.
And he's like, babe, $50 million. I'm punching the shit out of you.
You don't punch me. We're probably getting divorced anyways.
Right? The other night, I asked my wife the same question. I was like, babe, would you let me punch you for $50 million? She's like, how hard?
Yeah.
And I was like, pretty hard. If they say I gotta,
right.
I would hate to hurt you, but $50 million?
Right. Mm-hmm.
She was like, okay, I guess.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I guess if the opportunity ever does. And then lastly, what is your all-time biggest fear?
all-time biggest fear, I think not accomplishing is not the right word, but not obtaining that life. So like, success is creating a life that feels good. And to me right now, especially, or not especially, but like right now, because we're so close to being able to potentially leave the country, it would be not being able to live outside of the country again.
Sure. It would be getting to the point where it's like, you can't.
Yeah. Right.
That'd be a really tough day.
Yeah.
Understood. Well, my friend, now I'm going to give you the opportunity, as if we haven't been talking about it the entire episode, but now go ahead and talk to the people. Tell them how to find you, where to find you, if they're interested in any of the stuff we talked about, where to go and what to do.
Awesome. Yeah. So thanks so much for having me, first of all. This has been a joy. But yeah, if you want to find me, you can find me over on LinkedIn, Kaleigh Newby. That is the place that I'm trying to post up and kind of live this year, is LinkedIn, because I think most of my ideal clients might live on that platform and I have not lived there. So find me on LinkedIn and, message me if you haven't seen anything in a while. Keep me accountable to showing up there. You can also find me at 3centers.consulting on Instagram. There is nothing there, but there will be this year. You can also find me at Kaleigh Newby on Instagram too, if you want to kind of see a behind the scenes look or get to know me more. I think that's one thing I've also learned, is I have done more business in the past year with people that I kind of know who they are. And so I would love for you to get to know me too, to see if we're a good fit to work together, either individually or bringing me into your business or your organization. And yeah, I think asking questions is a great place to start. So send me an email, Kaleigh@KaleighNewby.com. And I would love to answer any questions you have. If it's just general questions about the Enneagram or how it can be related or applied to some avenue in your life, definitely shoot me an email or a DM and I'd be happy to start a conversation.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing this with me and for taking the time to get to know me, let me get to know you, and what you do is truly fascinating stuff. I can't wait to see your face on the cover of all of the world's leading experts in this. I have no doubt that you'll get there. It's really cool to hear about the really cool work you do. And yeah, thanks for taking the time to be here. I appreciate it. You could be anywhere in the world running this business, but you decided to spend an hour and a half with me, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Everybody, I will throw the links that she mentioned in the description of the episode so that you have easy access to, like we said, consult, or if you're interested in asking her a question or, finding more information, the information will be in the description of the episode. And like I said at the top, make sure to follow me along also on LinkedIn. It's a place that I can give plenty of advice on, because I have lived on LinkedIn the last year. It might be my favorite social media platform, actually. It's gotten to be that point. But LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram at Your Morning Drive, Spotify, Apple, YouTube at Your Morning Drive. And I hope you have a good rest of your day, and we'll see you guys next time. Take care.